Black love, black heartbreak, black childhood, black parenting. Do yourself a favor. If you have not seen Forever, it is must-see TV. See it soon. Stay tuned as we dig into the series Forever on Mama We Made It with DJ and Reg. Mama, I made it.
Hey man, growing up, did you read any Donald Goines or Iceberg Slim?
I did not. I snuck and watched many a black exploitation flick. That was probably my entry into black Hollywood, but I did not read it.
I was an avid, I was a big reader as a kid, and I read everything from Donald Goines, like El Dorado Red. I don't know how old I was way too young to be reading that book. But I read, my mom put me on to Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin early. But Donald Goines and Judy Blume, ironically enough, were two of my favorite authors as I grew up, certainly going into high school. And by the time I get to autobiography of Malcolm X, my whole world changed and the whole world was open. But seeing Forever before the show came out be optioned and seeing Judy Blume talking about her excitement to option that book to Mara Brock Akil to make this TV show fascinated me because I remember reading the book in high school and it's racy, right? It's absolutely racy content, like Forever, Wifey, like all that content was like really, really crazy for a 16, 17-year-old. So yeah, I'm excited today to get into Forever, man, because I absolutely love that show and feel about it very protectively as an excellent offering of black storytelling kind of for us, by us, and how we bring stories to life. So I'm excited.
Man, I can't wait. And I'd love to hear, some of the central themes that resonated most with you. I want to start, though, by the thank you, man, because you turned me on to it. And I'd heard a little bit about people talking about it. I'm like, yeah, that was one of those when I get around to it. Bruh, it took me 2 sittings to watch all 8. And I just happened to fall asleep on like 5. Woke up the next morning, boop, right through it. So thank you. Incredible. Incredibly done. Weaving in of different directors per episode, man, all of that was just incredible. When we talked a little bit about it, one of the things you mentioned was it resonated partially because you could personally relate to it. So maybe that might be a good way to kick this off. In what way did you feel that?
So many different ways. I thought the way the parents were drawn was extremely relatable content. Like I thought how Wood Harris and Karen Pittman, who played Justin's parents, the way they were drawn, how they articulated what they were dealing with, their world view was very familiar to me. I thought that the way Justin and Keisha were drawn, I could see some of my children, some of my sons in Justin in a really interesting way, and some of the dynamics of young love in these predominantly white spaces and how they find each other and how that comes to be was fascinating. I thought that the Martha Vineyard episode, having spent a lot of time on the Vineyard and having seen a lot of folk try to tell stories on the Vineyard, this was as authentically done and as good at capturing the essence as anything I've seen. So I thought that was well done. I thought using LA as a character and showing all the ways that black LA comes to life, whether it was the Little League baseball, like I dug that. The brother relationship, Justin and Jaden, their age gap is roughly the age gap between my sons. And so seeing that, brotherly bond was fascinating. I could go on, but I thought the way the characters were drawn, the way they were written in terms of the dialogue, and then the performances, really, really relatable content. Those are conversations we've had, might still be having to some degree in our house. So it felt like they had put a camera in my living room and spied on some of the more passionate conversations I've had with my sons over the years, for sure.
Yeah, I'll share a couple things that really resonated with me on a personal tip. And then I'd love to maybe get into some more detail around some of those concepts. For me, not having kids, Reg, the parenting is something that I focused on from a kid's point of view, being a kid. And then my mom, who raised me through 6th grade, and then basically my grandmother 7th through 12th, playing the role of quote unquote mom and dad, both of them. So I never had that balancing act. I never had that, yeah, I know your mom is tripping, let's go get some ice cream. It was like, yeah, I might be tripping, but go to bed, right? Or there's no ice cream. But then also the love, the tenderness and all that, man. So that, anytime I see that juxtaposition, it's always interesting me. Never experienced that, ever. I think the other thing, man, is look, we all have been through it, man, that first heartbreak. That first, until you experience, because you have to experience love to experience heartbreak, right? So it's like, you might not even know you in love, but you got your heart broken.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. I definitely didn't think I was in love in high school when Sandy, I still love you. Yes. But haven't talked to you in probably 40-something years.
Yes.
But I saw you walking down the hall with a homeboy from another school, and I thought you were my girl, right? Then you start running the other way when you see me, kind of thing. But that feeling is something you'll never forget.
Yep.
Right? Because again, I didn't know what love was. I knew how I felt about her. Life was good. Do my work, play football, hang out with Sandy, whatever. But man, I can remember like it was yesterday, that feeling I had when I saw. So that really resonated, the depiction of love and heartbreak along with that. Mm-hmm. So it was those things, man. And then some of the character development for me, man. Keisha's mom, probably my two favorite characters. Yeah, sure. Curious to know, did any certain characters resonate more so with you?
I thought Wood Harris killed the role as the father who loved his wife, whose energy was thoughtfully trying to play off of her get down and her sons get down. I thought the rawness and the realness of their relationship and how they talk to each other, really relatable content. But I like Wood Harris's execution of that character. Just big fan of that brother in general. I love Justin and Keisha. Like I just thought that love was really well created. And I have this theme, man. I don't know if I'm a hyper empath or not, but whenever I see young black folks rendered on screen, either realizing a dream or somebody standing in the breach to defend them or them being tender and vulnerable with each other, I cry. Like I'm a bucket of water. Like it don't take nothing for me to be leaking, right? And so there were multiple scenes where but there's like my heart bled for her. My heart bled for him, like, and them awkwardly trying to support each other and hurt people and all the things and cringing at some of the choices, but trying to give grace and understanding how that would actually come to be and why that is a realistic expectation in that space. So I really love Wood's character. I really love the interplay between Justin and Keisha. And I got to give a shout out to Keisha's girl, Chloe, right?
Yeah.
As friends go, right, particularly cross-cultural relationships, I thought she did a great job of being a really, really good friend, and the writing that, exposed without, stereotyping or troping the differences culturally and how they could talk through that and be honest. Like, she makes a line, tell me again why black folks don't like therapy. Girl, get off my phone. Like, I thought their interplay was really, really wholesome, and I appreciated that. I love George, the grandfather, and his role in her development, to your point, and giving her a pivot in the soft space. I love cousins. I'm a big fan of my cousins, so seeing her cousins be in her life. So, there wasn't a bad character sketch in the entire thing for me, for sure.
I'm with you, Purse. And back to Dawn, the mom, anytime I find myself reacting in a visceral way to characters, they're probably doing a really good job on the screen, right? And I definitely find myself like, if you don't leave my little man alone, like, let this man live, right? Like, like, leave him alone, let him do his thing, right? And then, Wood would walk in, Wood would come in and, hey man, let me talk to you. So I can't say enough about it, man. I can't say enough about how locked in I was. I can't say enough about we're not a monolith as young Black people, but the depiction of the different dimensions of Blackness and youth, man, I thought were incredible. And even the interactions. I think one of the things that really hit me too was this thing around mental health. And it wasn't a conversation for us growing up.
No.
It wasn't for me anyway, Reg, right? We never talked about it.
Yep.
And the fact that was brought out in a deliberate way, as well as Dawn acknowledging the helicopter parenting style, et cetera. Yeah, I'm still going to parent you, but I'm working on myself at the same time, right?
Yep.
Those concepts, too, being brought out, I thought were really, really important. How much had you heard about it, Reg, before you even locked in and started watching it?
2 days, maybe 3.
Okay.
I bumped into a clip of Judy Blume talking about her making, basically she said, people have been trying to get at me to option this out, to make this for a long time. And when the opportunity to let Mara make this came, it was a no-brainer. It made perfect sense. I knew that she would handle it with tender, loving care. And so that was probably early May. Like, this comes out May 8th or 9th. It was probably the first, so not too many days before I saw it. And then I saw Mara talking about something. And just for the record, anybody who knows me knows I have a huge, including my wife, knows I have a huge crush on Tracy Ellis Ross, right? And that started with Girlfriends, which is a show that I love. And shout out The Game as well. And those coming from the pen of Mara Brock Akil loop me in. I'll always be a fan of hers. And so seeing that Judy Blume piece, seeing Mara talk about it, I was like, oh, okay, I guess we should check this out. We had just finished watching whatever we had been watching, Paradise or The Residence. I forget what we were watching.
Okay.
And we needed some new content. So the timing was perfect. And we saw the first episode. We were like, you lying? You lying? Like, what is this? And so, like you, we watched it in 2 sessions only because my wife fell asleep. We'd have watched it in 1 if I had my choice. We would have gone all the way through. So I didn't have a lot of advance notice before we discovered the content.
Yeah, and it's really amazing, no matter how you grew up as a kid, I would imagine, and I've, requested that some folks watch it that are close to me. And it was the same thing, man. 2 sittings. Didn't want to put it down, really got through it. The other piece that I thought was interesting, and it didn't get a lot of conversation necessarily from folks I've talked to, is kind of that other side of the tracks depiction as well, right? If there is a follow-up to this, it would be interesting to understand a little bit more, and it might even start prior to where season 1 kicked off. How did we get here? Because even that juxtaposition of, Wood's character and Dawn, what was the real key to that cohesiveness? And how did they land there, parenting styles, etc. So that one, and then Keisha and Justin.
Sure.
That piece as well.
I wasn't thrilled, though I was very happy for them to get renewed for season 2. I was, when I finished watching it, perfectly fine with it being a limited series, 8 episodes, done, and it will sit there in the vault and stand the test of time.
Yeah.
So I'm still kind of rolling that around in my head. I think you make 2 good points. One is it would be a fascinating prequel to see Wood's character, whose name I can't think of, and Dawn's love story, how we get there. Do I want more Justin and Keisha? I mean, for me, I could see a world where they fast forward to 4 years later.
Yeah.
She's graduated from college. He sold a couple more beats, and they've maintained a friendship and what that means for the go forward. Because I am a big fan of their friendship, man. I appreciate that the way we saw it end was, poignant, not necessarily romantic, and allow them to go full circle. He gives her the bag and says, "This is what our first date should be like, should have been like." And so I would like to see her grow on her journey at Howard. I'd like to see him grow on his journey. I don't know if I see that being Northwestern in a year, so hopefully the beat making and producer's path works out for him. I don't know what I would want from that. I like it as it is right now. Like in my head, like if I'm being really honest, the single piece of content that I go back to the most for therapy and rewatchability is Insecure.
Okay.
Like I love Insecure, everything about it from beginning to end. And so for me, this is baby Insecure. So yeah, there's 4 or 5 seasons of an arc here, as long as it isn't Lawrence and Issa all the way through. So as long as it's not just Justin and Keisha all the way through, I'm open to that. Not sure how I feel about it, because I was perfectly fine with being done. Nice little tidy bow on it at the end.
I'm with you. And again, I know someone who watched it after I did expressed a bit of disappointment in that they didn't end up together. The fact of the matter is you end up with one person in this life, right? If you're lucky.
At a time. Yes.
Let's hope, right? Coming off that other marriage. Well,
yes.
As the world would know, yeah. So everything else is, a learning experience, man, in my opinion. So they learned a lot from each other. They added a lot of value to each other's lives. They loved each other at the end. I think probably true love at the end.
Yep.
And I think that's okay at times. It doesn't have to be dancing off, with rainbows on their heads into the sunset. It was a little bit heartbreaking, though. He was like, "Yeah, I could come to Howard, yeah."
That look. You never want that look. You never want to put your heart on Front Street and get that look. You don't want that. She looked at him like, I mean,
I thought you had dreams, though.
Right. Did you get some other plans? Let's double click a little bit on 2 maybe more uncomfortable parts of the space and relationship. Christian Boykin, right, and the sexual assault, for lack of a better way of putting it. I mean, we can call it, we can say leaking of a sex tape, but the reality is, particularly in California, that's a crime, if not a felony, right?
100%.
So, the how they drew his character and set that situation up, also very, very real, right? Yes. Also very, very painful to watch. And watching her carry that alone, shielding it from the viewing eyes of her mom in particular, her grandfather, being able to share that with Justin on some level, I thought that was really well done. But it is a reminder, they're kids, right? They're 16, they're 17, exactly. And all the ways that these social media tools, all the ways that peer pressure and all these things that are happening is really, really real. And the lives that they're living that we as their guardians and parents have no idea about, scary.
Very much so. Very scary. And, her concept of love at that point is pleasing her man, right? And if this is going to make you feel good, if this is what signifies love to you, I'm likely willing to do it, even though he may or may not have nefarious intentions. And I think the other element of this too, Percy, is where Dawn, Eric's wife, Eric, who's Wood, forces a conversation.
Yeah.
Forces a conversation. Yeah. Is that your place, right? That's not your daughter, right? That's not your daughter. So that gets real tricky.
Fine line.
Right?
Fine line.
Right? And that was one of the most intriguing aspects of the entire film for me is, I'm thinking, if I'm Dawn or Dawn's my wife, how do you handle that? Right? How do you handle that? And that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Granted, your son is involved, but that's not his fight.
I thought it was well executed in how they depicted it on screen. It is a fine line. I mean, she told us her motivation for doing it was that the village at Brookwood failed Keisha and this village will not. And if we believe that sincerely, and from a woman's perspective, I do honor her understanding of the nuances of this young sister doesn't know what she doesn't know, and her mama needs to know because someone needs to really help guide her through this, because this might be the beginning of some other challenging choices she makes that she might need some guidance through. So I was sensitive to where Dawn was coming from. I think she was certainly heavy-handed with it, with Justin, and forcing the issue. I don't know if ends justifies the means, but I am glad that it did ultimately lead to Keisha's mom finding out. It was uncomfortable to watch. I don't know what I do in that situation. This notion that Eric, as her husband, could get her to stand down, I don't think that's real. Like, I think she was going to do what she was going to do, come hell or high water. When I grew up, you could get a spanking from the next door neighbor, and they didn't have to call your parents to get permission. Right? And so in a world where we all knew each other, it was one thing. That Keisha's mom and Justin's mom knew each other from elementary school did suggest a pre-existing relationship, even though she doesn't really reference that at that time. To me, they did know each other. And in that way, I can see a world where Dawn says nothing and Keisha's mom be like, bitch, you knew? And you didn't tell me? Like, I can see that going the other way, right? So I'm not mad at Dawn for the play she made. You can question whether or not it was her place. But, as villages go, tough one. I don't know how I would play it if I'm Eric in that situation, what that conversation sounds like. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you, Reg. It's easy to say what we, think we might do or what sounds like the right thing.
The other tough not wrinkle, but just interesting dynamic was Keisha's dad.
Yes.
Right? And particularly that scene at her signing day celebration, I think it was, and they're in the apartment, they're celebrating Keisha getting into Howard, getting a full ride. Dad meets Justin for the first time, and he's pressing him. Right? And we all like to playfully but not play with the young men coming into the lives of our daughters in particular, but in general, the romantic partners of our kids are, let's stress test this dude and see what he's made of. And he pressed him in a way that was cringy to me. Like it got uncomfortable for real, particularly when you contemplate Justin as an ADHD dude with some inference that he might indeed actually be on the spectrum. Like, Pops was in his grill in a really uncomfortable way, and he had been in the bottle, right? So talk to me about your perspective about Keisha's dad and how he carried it.
It's a simple rule for me, Reg. Are you going to press that young man the same way if Eric is sitting in the room, his dad?
Okay, sure.
And you're not.
Yep.
That's the golden rule for me. Yep. Is if that man's sitting there, you can still have a conversation around intentions around my daughter, etc. Let me kind of see what you made of, questions. But if the dad was sitting there, would you handle it the same way? And I think the clear answer is probably not.
Not without some furniture moving.
Exactly. So then don't do it when Pops ain't around. Because when you got in that man's house, so that's my simple go-to. may or may not be what people subscribe to, but that's what I was thinking when I saw that. How about you?
I didn't think that, but that's a good lens on it. In that, again, a well-drawn character, but like, can I see that happen? Yeah, I know that dude. He been in the DR chasing his dream.
Yes.
It ain't all come together quite for him the way he thought it would be. He been drinking. His father,
Pops, let's go.
Father's right behind him, and his father was the one who was supposed to check him. That was revealing to me how much distance there really was between he and his father, and all the guilt of the things that happened around him chasing his dreams. That should have been nipped in the bud right away. If not by the father, then certainly by the mom. And she did ultimately shut it down, and the cousins helped as well. Because you're right, that was a man pressing a child.
100%.
For as grown as Justin might have thought he was being pressed by a grown man. And you know what that feels like. That energy hits different.
Absolutely.
You might be a tall 17-year-old, but that grown man energy hits you different, and your heart will pump up a little Kool-Aid.
With the bottle too?
And he was in the bottle.
Man, dancing around. Yeah, so
I liked how they executed it. I hated the fucking scene.
Yeah.
I hated
and again, sign of great work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sign of great work. Man.
Exactly.
So again,
I appreciated that they came back around and gave us some exposition of he and Keisha sitting on the couch eating ice cream and talking, and he got a chance to unpack his story, a little bit of his trauma, his journey, and how, quite frankly, what he was really saying is, I see a lot of myself in Justin, and he's making you his prize, and he's making choices that maybe not a simp, but making choices that aren't healthy for him, and they're not going to be healthy for you. And so them getting able to clarify that, I liked that as a way for us not to just walk away and see that dude as a monster.
Love that.
Right? The humanizing him and his concerns, his motivation. So I appreciated that all the characters, even Christian Boykin, right? Like the brokenness of the characters in this show was always met with some level of, I'm trying to humanize him as well. Not justified, not excused, not let them off the hook, but at least expose us to some more of their fullness so we can get some sense of who they are and not simply say monster, assaulter, crime.
That's a great point.
And so I appreciated that level of care and structuring of the characters and some level of balance there. Even with, Dawn and Eric and how she might have been a helicopter mom, but you could see the love. Like the scene where he comes into her room, she's listening to Minnie Riperton.
Love that.
She comes out the shop. She's like, boy, you don't want me walking in your room. You stay walking in mine.
Yeah.
And that whole conversation up to including Black Keisha? Mom, how many white Keishas do you know? And then all the way to the end when he leaves and she says the finger crossed prayer. Like, I appreciated the ability to soften the hard edges of these characters while still showing us, none of us are fully formed in that way.
100%, man. So again, we're up on time, right? But thank you for that one, bro.
Do you want a season 2?
I do, but I'm with you. I don't necessarily need to have Justin and Keisha as the focal point here.
Yeah.
I would love to let's do a bit of a backdrop here and learn more about Eric and Dawn. I would love to see that.
Yeah, dig it. Same. And shout out to the very cool, timely, proper timeline soundtrack. Like, it was fun to go back to 100. Some of those old cuts. That Bad Not Good cut, man, that hit me straight in the heart. So
100.
If y'all haven't seen Forever and you still with this episode, spoiler alert. That's DJ. I'm Reg. This is Mama. We made it. Peace and blessings.
See you soon.